All right, let's be honest. We've all been there, right? Sitting through some kind of harassment training. You click through the slides, maybe you watch a few cheesy videos, and then you check that box. But here's the million-dollar question. Does any of it actually work? Today, we're going to dig into what separates that old, ineffective, check-the-box training from the kind of programs that genuinely create a safer, more respectful workplace. Okay, so let's just start with the reality of the situation. The reason this conversation is so critical is because workplace harassment is still a massive problem. I mean, just look at these numbers. Surveys show that a staggering 40% of women and 16% of men say they've been sexually harassed on the job. These are not small figures, this is a huge slice of our workforce.
And if you think that's bad, get this. The problem we see is really just the tip of the iceberg. It's estimated that somewhere between 87 and 94%. Let that sink in. 94% of people who experience harassment never file a formal complaint. And why is that? Well, it's usually fear. Fear of retaliation, or just the feeling that, nothing's gonna change anyway.
So this brings us to the big central question, doesn't it? I mean, with so many companies mandating this training, with laws in states like California and New York that literally require it, why are these numbers still so incredibly high? Why is there this huge gap between all the training we're doing and the results we're actually seeing or not seeing? This right here, this is what we can call the training paradox. We're going to take a look at why that old way of doing things, that traditional check-the-box approach, just flat out isn't cutting it. And the evidence suggests the problem is even worse than we think. It's not just that the old training isn't effective, sometimes it's actually harmful. A 2019 study found that generic, poorly designed corporate training can actually backfire, leading to more employee dissatisfaction and even causing people to quit. It basically breeds cynicism instead of creating a sense of safety. So if the old way is so broken, what's the solution? Well, it takes a completely different way of thinking about the problem. It requires a fundamental shift away from just trying to avoid lawsuits and toward actively building a better workplace culture. And this really gets to the heart of it. The old way was all about playing defense, right? It was designed to protect the company from legal trouble. But the new way, the effective way, is all about playing offense. It's focused on teaching and reinforcing a genuine culture of respect, civility, and inclusion for every single person. And look, this isn't just some trendy new idea. This is backed up by the experts. Here, the former acting chair of the EEOC, that's the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, she says it perfectly. The goal can't just be about avoiding liability. It has to be about promoting respect and actually empowering people to be part of the solution. Okay, so let's get practical. Let's break down what this new approach actually looks like day to day. We're going to cover the essential components, the who, the when, the what, and the how of training that really, truly works. First things first, effective training cannot be a one-and-done event. Think about it. You wouldn't go to the gym once a year and expect to be fit, right? Same idea. A single session is easily forgotten. Prevention has to be this continuous process, with regular refreshers and maybe even short little micro-learning bits to keep these ideas top of mind all year. Second, it has to be for everyone. And I mean everyone, from the CEO in the corner office all the way down to the newest intern or contractor. When leadership is sitting right there in the training, it sends this incredibly powerful message that no one is above the rules and that we all share the responsibility for keeping our workplace respectful. All right, our third essential is a big one. It's all about the what and the how. Because if the content isn't relevant to people's actual day-to-day jobs, and if it isn't delivered in an engaging way, it's just not gonna stick. Trust me, nobody's behavior changes because of a boring slide deck full of legal definitions. So how do you do that? You have to move people from passive learning, where they're just listening, to active learning. We're talking about things like role-playing, interactive video scenarios that are specific to your industry, and real group discussions. These things help people practice the skills in a safe setting, and that is so much more effective. Now, remember that shocking statistic about underreporting? Well, here is the terrifying reason why it's so high. Studies show that about 75% of people who do speak up and report harassment actually experience some kind of retaliation for it. This right here is why our next essential is maybe the most critical one for building any kind of trust. This all leads to our fourth essential. You have to build a reporting system that people actually trust. Because at the end of the day, the best training in the world is useless if people are too scared to use it. That means having multiple confidential ways to report an issue, a rock-solid, loudly communicated anti-retaliation policy, and an investigation process that is prompt, fair, and transparent. When you start putting all of these essential pieces together, you realize something. The goal isn't just about running a better training session. The goal is to use that training as a catalyst, as a tool to drive real, lasting, company-wide cultural change. A huge part of that culture shift, and our fifth essential, is empowering bystanders. This kind of training, bystander intervention, is becoming a cornerstone of modern programs. It gives everyone in the organization tools to safely step in or speak up when they see something that isn't right. It turns people from passive observers into an active part of the solution. And that brings us to our sixth and final essential, and it's a big one. You have to recognize that even the absolute best, most engaging training program in the world cannot succeed in a vacuum. It has to be just one piece of a much larger, more holistic strategy for preventing harassment. In fact, the EEOC lays out what this whole strategy looks like with these 5 pillars. You need committed leadership setting the tone from the very top. You need consistent accountability when rules are broken. You need strong, clear policies. You need those trusted complaint procedures we just talked about. And finally, number 5, you need that regular interactive training. You see, training is absolutely essential, but it only really works when it's part of this bigger ecosystem. And when all of those pieces finally come together, the result you get is so much more than just legal compliance. You get a workplace where people genuinely feel safe, valued, and respected. And at a workplace like that, it's more productive, it's more inclusive, and it's more unified. It's just plain better for the people and for the bottom line. So, I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What if we all stopped thinking about harassment training as just a list of rules to avoid breaking? What if, instead, we started seeing it as a conversation about the kind of respect and dignity that we all deserve at work? That single shift in perspective, well, that might just be the key to making it all finally work.